Hola, mi familia. Welcome back to episode 4 of Life with Lexis Kai Podcast. I'm your cousin, Lexis K, Rude K, Bad Gal, aka the owner operator of this thing that we call Life with Lexis K. And today we're going to be talking about human design, but today is going to be talking about gates, centers, and channels. All right. As you can tell from the title, we're going to be focusing on one specific channel, which is the channel 3536 of Transitoriness. So today's episode is called Jane of All Trades, Master of None. Now, today I want to start with our affirmations. Today's affirmations are going to be activating that sacral chakra, that sacral area, that sacral center where our creative energy comes from, our life force energy comes from, and also just our ability to adapt and be comes from, right? That's really where human beings live, in the sacral, but don't be lower vibrational, whatever. Let's not even think about it that deep. All right. So again, today's affirmation, I want to start with some deep breaths. All right. So let's start with inhaling 2, 3 through the nose, exhaling 2, 3 out the mouth. And let's do that one more time. Inhaling 2, 3 through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. All right, repeat after me. I embrace my creativity and allow it to flow freely. I attract abundance and joy effortlessly. I trust the process of creation and transformation. Every experience thus far was just training. Amen. All is well. All right, y'all. Let me give y'all a quick. Quita, y'all, that's my auntie, long lost auntie. I'm gonna tell y'all about that story one day. But shout out to her. I'm gonna tag her. Actually, I'm gonna let her know she got a shout out just that quick. But let me give y'all a quick update. First of all, happy holidays, y'all. I don't know how y'all Thanksgiving was. Mine was awesome. Thanksgiving will never be the same without my grandma, but it was really a great Thanksgiving this year. Live Life Lavish University is going to be launching officially April 2026. So this year, I pour a lot of energy into Live Life Lavish University. Even more energy is going to be poured from now to April. I am accepting 10 students for my founding circle. 10 students. You can use a coupon code founding10 for $99 off registration for Live Life Lavish University. It's $297. After that coupon, it makes it $198. And Afterpay is actually an option, so you could split that payment up in four. So $198 split up in four is what math? I don't know. We didn't come here for that. So again, Live Life Lavish University, the founding circles cohort opening up April 2026. All right. So that's it for my updates. Let's go ahead and get into today's episode. So, like I mentioned, I want to talk about centers, a little bit about gates, and about channels. All right. So let's start with centers. Now, if you have been gotten a body graph reading, or don't know what I'm talking about, check out Jovian Archive. And I think I linked them in the last episode, but check out Jovian Archive. I'll link it below in the description. Get your body graph, and then set some time with me, either a mini read or an in-depth read, for us to go over your body graph together. You could do that at lifewithlexusk.com. Click shop and book with me. All right. So yeah, going back, you have 9 centers on your body graph. All right. Think chakra system 2.0. All right. So chakras and the body graph energy centers align very much because one is based on the other, right? Definitely not the chakra system that came like thousands of years before human design. But, human design is combining all this information and all this knowledge from these long time, ways of knowing or knowledge systems into a modern day vehicle that we can use to interpret our energy. Remember, human design is all about how is your energy working through your body and with the environment around you. So those 9 centers could either be colored in, which we call defined, or uncolored in, which we call undefined. So it's either going to be a color or white. All right. So starting the 9 centers in your human design body graph, starting from the triangle at the top is your head. Your head, you can think about equivalent to your crown chakra, right? This is just your ability to connect direct with source energy. Not in that way. Your head is an energy center, and it just kind of is getting information from all around you. It's your antenna, basically. Going to the next triangle is going to be your ajna. Your ajna correlates to your third eye chakra. Your ajna is the separation between your brain and your mind, right? So whereas your head is like your consciousness connection to that outside entity, outside source, your ajna is more of your mind, your brain doing the thinking, right? So this is your conscious brain. If you can think about your mind and your brain as two separate things, this is your conscious brain, your ajna. All right. Going down to the first triangle, or excuse me, the first rectangle is your throat center. Your throat center directly correlates to your throat chakra. If you have an active throat center, you are a manifester or a manifesting generator. But we'll talk about that maybe one day. I don't know. Let me know what you want me to talk about. This is what I wanted to talk about. Okay, going down to the rhombus. The rhombus is called the G center, and some literature is called the self. But this is your identity, right? I like to call the G center or equivalent the G center to your solar plexus, because your solar plexus chakra is really where your identity lives, or your sense of self. All right. Then we go over to the isosceles triangle to the right of that rhombus. That is your heart center. Your heart center, also called your willpower center, is just like I said, it's your willpower, it's your desire. Now, your heart center correlates to your heart chakra as well. So it's a little bit out of order in terms of, like, if the chakra were in order from top to bottom, like from crown, or that's backwards for you. You don't care about that. All right. So now we're over to the left side. The left triangle is the spleen. Now, the spleen is something different that you don't get in the chakra system. Your spleen here is your survival instinct, for lack of better words. So your spleen is just that fight or flight natural instinct. Then directly across from the spleen is your solar plexus. Your solar plexus is just like in your solar plexus chakra, but not really. I guess I think about it more as your emotional center. That's really what it is. It governs your emotional self. Now, what I really love about the solar plexus is that it is an awareness center. Now, what type of awareness? Where the spleen, which is also an awareness center, you get physical awareness in the spleen. In the solar plexus, you get spiritual awareness. So the solar plexus is directly connected to source energy as well. So awareness centers are connected to source energy. But your solar plexus is so unique because it's your emotional center, right? We don't think about our emotions as being something divinely given, but they are. Your emotions tell you something. They are energy in motion. So they're telling you something. And spirit, God, source is energy, is all. And we can talk about that, for hours. But going back to that square that is directly above the bottom square, that is your sacral. We did our affirmations earlier, activating that sacral center. That is your life force energy. If you have your sacral is defined, you are a generator or a manifesting generator, right? And then finally, that bottom square is going to be your root center. Directly correlates to your root chakra. This is your pressure center. This is, get things done. But this is also, I am safe, I am well protected, I am taken care of. So those are just the 9 energy centers in the body graph, in the human design body graph system. Going from centers, you'll notice if you're looking at your own body graph, which I hope you are, because I told you, look it up on Jovian Archive and follow along with me. If you're looking up your own body graph, you might see that in these centers there are numbers, right? And these numbers are called gates. Now, these gates, there are 64 of them. These gates correlate to the Chinese I Ching system. Excuse me, so it's pronounced I Ching. The Chinese I Ching system is a 1,000-year-old system for divination. So it was used back in the days as a way to tell your future. Now, the 64 gates, which we have upgraded to the 64 gene keys, are coming from this I Ching, which is translated into a book of changes. Each gate can either be active or inactive. How do you know a gate is active? It has a color associated with it, or like the center is going to be activated, so the center is going to be defined, it's going to be colored in, and then that number will be colored in as well. So, for example, I have the gate 3 activated. The gate 3 you find in your sacral center. All right. So, those 64 gates correlate to the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching. And when I started thinking about the hexagram, it made me start to think about sacred geometry, right? I have this video. Everything is mathematics. So even DNA. And then it made me think about the DNA because there's 64 codons in the DNA. You know, the A, T, C, G. Using those different letters of the DNA, you can only make 64 different alter alternate, what do you call it? Alternate combinations, right? So those are 64 codons. So this 64, this hexagram number is going back to some sacred geometry in a way. I don't know where it came from. But I want us to think about the I Ching, these 64 gates, as the book of changes. So for the rest of the episode, I'm going to use book of changes versus I Ching. So again, these 64 gates are all around these 9 centers. And what happens when two gates connect? That is called a channel. All right. So a channel, I think I have it written down here. Definition. This is a definition from Jovian Archive, y'all. A channel is pathways that connect energy centers, create definition, also forming the foundation of your type. So the definition just said channels turn into your definitions, which we haven't talked about yet, but I can talk about that somewhere else. I talked about that on another video before. But today we're going to be talking about this channel 3635 of transitoriness. All right. Now, this channel is also called the Jack of All Trades. Notice today's episode is called the Jane of All Trades. You know, I'm trying to be gender neutral. I'm sorry, gender conscious for my ladies, because I'm a Jane of All Trades. And in today's episode, I'm going to kind of talk about why do I see myself as a Jane of All Trades. It's just because I have a little bit of experience about a lot. All right. Now, transitoriness. What does this word mean? It's almost time for our story time. Are y'all ready? I know y'all ready. Okay, cool. So I have the channel of transitoriness active in my chart. Duh. Why you think I'm talking about it? Not to be conceited, but this is Life with Lexis Kai Podcast. That's me. So, anyways, I have the channel of transitoriness active in my chart. This channel, you find gate 35, which is of change. Remember the I Ching, book of change. The gate 35 of change, found in the throat center, connects to the gate 36 of crisis, found in the solar plexus or the emotional center. So this channel to me shows the power formed between speaking and feeling, or the power that is formed when you speak what you really feel, right? Because I'm connecting my emotional center, my solar plexus, directly to my throat center, my manifesting ability. So that creates power, right? Because power is it is a driver. It's an energy force. And when you talk about or you speak with passion, even how I'm speaking with passion on this episode, and I talked about it in some of my bloopers, the parts that got edited out, that this is actually probably my 4th time trying to edit this episode tonight. I even had to get up and lock my door. The kids kept coming in. They want me to do this. They want me talking about this and this and this. And I'm just like, hey, but that just reminded me that I'm doing something important, because I wouldn't be getting distracted if it wasn't important. You get what I'm saying? Let me go back down memory lane. I'm gonna go down memory lane of all the different jobs that I had. And the reason why I'm doing this, y'all, is because the word transitoriness means the quality of being temporary or impermanent. Temporary or impermanent, y'all. And I thought that was so funny, because where I am right now in my career, I regret sometimes changing careers so much or changing jobs so much. But I see at the same time how necessary it is for me building Triple H, right? Triple H is something that I've never seen done before. I am creating something that I feel will support my descendants, my inheritance for generations to come, and also the community at large. And that's what I'm building it for. But all the experience that I've had thus far, remember, one of our affirmations today was every experience thus far was just training. And that is so important for this episode because I'm going to take you back to when I was 14 years old. Y'all know I had heaven at 14. I ain't never been no deadbeat mama. So as soon as I had my baby, she was 3 months old, I found me a job. So that brings us to my first ever job was working at Winn-Dixie, a local grocery store in Jacksonville, Florida, as a bagger. So I worked as a bagger because I was too young to be a cashier. You had to be 16 to be a cashier. So I used to be pushing those carts and bagging that groceries. I did that. I worked at Winn-Dixie from 14 to 19, y'all. I took Winn-Dixie all the way with me to Tallahassee to FSU College and only stopped working there because they ended up filing bankruptcy and some of the stores were closing. So I went from a bagger to a cashier to a grocery associate. Like I used to put up our medicines and stuff. And then even so far as a customer service associate, I used to count money for Winn-Dixie, like at 17. Crazy enough, I did that for a while. Now, at the same time, when I turned 16, or I was 16 and some change, I worked at a local hair store. Now, working at that local hair store, people used to ask me all the time, how did I get the job? I kid you not, this is how I got that job. I walked in one day and I was natural back then. Well, I'm still natural, but I'm locked now. But I was a loose natural back then. And I was rocking my baby fro. And I had a flower bandana that I made, y'all, on my head. And it was cute and it was styled. And I was just cutesy. I'm doing my thing. And the owner, Mary Chang, I love her to life. Mary saw me and she was like, who made your headband? Like, where did you get your headband from? I said, I made this. And she was like, well, could you make these for me? Like, for me to sell them in my store, I could pay you. How much would you charge? So we just started talking. I was telling her about my life. At this time, I'm 16. I'm working part time, at least 25 hours a week at Winn-Dixie. I got a daughter. I'm doing sports. And Mary offered me a job. Now, I worked there until I ended up getting fired because I was messing around with my baby daddy. He was doing too much stuff. But anyways, that job, I really learned about trends. Like, I was wearing lashes when I was 16. That's before lashes became really a thing, right? Before the girls was buying the clusters off TikTok shop, I was getting the clusters done in the hair store for $15, $10, $15, right? Getting my brows done. Wearing lace front wigs, y'all. I was in high school wearing lace front wigs because I worked at the hair store. And that was the trend already. That was the trend underground. It didn't go mainstream really until it got popular on social media, like YouTube and stuff. So that's 16. This whole time, remind you, I'm working at Winn-Dixie. I lose that job. When I'm 18, I get a job at McDonald's. Now, I work at McDonald's for about 2-3 months. I'm when I start working here, I'm pregnant with Malia. So I used to work there overnight. This was just my second job. And what caused me to not work there anymore, I ended up totaling my car right before I started college. So like I graduated high school in June. I think I totaled my car in like May. Crazy, right? I know. So then fast forward, we're still working at Winn-Dixie, y'all. I graduated high school. I'm in Tallahassee. And I quit Winn-Dixie, or right before Winn-Dixie closes down, I get a job at a call center. Shout out to Pat Live, aka Tresta, aka I don't know what they're going by now, but I get a job at a call center as a virtual assistant. Hi, thank you for calling whatever. My name is Pat. How can I help you? Now, that job really taught me that I learned a lot about real estate, crazy enough, because we used to answer a lot for those bandit signs, those real estate people with the bandit signs. So I learned a lot about that. But I also learned just about scheduling, right? Because I used to do after hours appointment scheduling, anything related to any position or any industry that you think would need a receptionist. I was their receptionist, but I was just virtual. So I was a virtual receptionist, and that was a really cool job. I worked there for a few months, and then I ended up quitting that job because I thought I was going to get fired. Long story, whatever. Now, after that, I took a job as a unit secretary at a mental health hospital. So this is a really great story about manifestation. Now, at this time, I might be 20 years old. I might be 19, 20, but I was in school full time. I had my sister who was 16 years old. I had temporary custody of her, or guardianship, excuse me, temporary guardianship. And I had my two girls. So my girls were young. they had to be maybe 2 and 6. We in Tallahassee, and they're in school. The baby go to daycare, and I'm living off my school money, which is okay. But I'm used to a certain quality of life at this point because I've already given myself this quality of life, given my kids, and with my sister, I just needed a little bit more. Having a high schooler, like I said, she was 16, is a bit more expensive. So I wanted an overnight job, but I did not want to work every day. I wanted to only work the weekends. So I really, really was looking for an overnight job only on the weekends. Tell me why the mental health hospital in the area, well, one of the major ones, they had just created a position. It was 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Friday through Sunday, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I was the only person to ever have that shift. I don't even know if they hired somebody for that shift after I quit, because I ended up quitting that job like 10 months later. But that job literally fit my needs perfectly because I was able to work overnight 3 hours a week. I mean, excuse me, 3 days a week. And it didn't interfere with my school schedule. It didn't really interfere with my kids. I was able to, be an involved parent because my daughter, she cheered and stuff like that. So I was able to do all the things that I needed to do with her. And it was just a perfect schedule. So that was me working as a unit secretary. And then after that, like I said, I quit, baby, because I quit jobs. That's gonna be a thing too. Remember episode 1, sorry, I quit my job. Oh yeah, I quit jobs. Then I'm already on job number 5, mind you, and I'm only 20 years old and I'm on job number 5. Then job number 6, I work from home. I get, a work from home job as a Medicare insurance customer service agent. That job was cool because it was a little bit of a foreshadow to me, because even though I was working and living in Tallahassee, the customers that I was answering for were in Memphis, and the Memphis, Germantown, like Shelby County, Memphis, Tennessee area. Y'all know I end up meeting Papa in Memphis. I don't know if y'all know that, but maybe one day, one episode, I'll tell you about that, honey, because that's going to be crazy. That's going to be a crazy episode. Anyways, so I worked there. I learned a lot about Medicaid, Medicare, and I learned a lot about insurance because these people were either on disability or elderly, right? And they did not know that what their Medicare covered and what their Medicaid did not cover. And I think that was really an eye opener to how much of a scheme insurance was for me. But I learned a lot, which I find very valuable now that I, need private insurance, or I can qualify for private insurance. So I quit that job, even though it was work from home. I moved to Houston to be a teacher, and I did not take that work from home job with me because it was so stressful. Now looking back, I probably should have taken that job with me because I ended up going a full 30 days in Houston without any income. And when I quit, from the time I quit that job to me getting my first check from teaching, was a full 30 days. I do not recommend. And why didn't I take the work from home job with me? I don't know. It was stressing me out. I wanted to be done. All right. So after that, as I said, I moved to Texas, Houston, Texas, baby, H-Town, honey, to become an educator. And I did that for a full 2.5, almost 3 years. Now, in my time as an educator, I also took on additional roles, such as a course facilitator. So basically what that meant was I was a lead teacher for ELA, and I would get the curriculum earlier than anybody else, read the curriculum earlier, and basically help the teachers teach the curriculum to their students. And what that taught me was that I really love not only education, to children, but I love learning and development. I love helping people be better at what they are already doing. And I did that for 3 years, about 2.5, 2.75, 2.97, whatever you want to call it, and quit that job and worked as a minority development program specialist. Now, that was a really special job. I really enjoyed that job. And that is the job that I'm referring to in episode 1, I believe, or it might be teaching. So either that or teaching was what I was referring to in episode 1. But I really enjoyed that job. I learned a lot, and it taught me about economic development in a way that I had not seen before. A lot of times I was seeing economic development as workforce development, helping people become better employees. I had not been exposed enough to entrepreneurship, and especially Black entrepreneurship. And in those 8 months working with this, nonprofit organization dedicated to helping small and minority owned businesses do contracts with large corporates, I learned so much. It made me want to quit and, eventually start my own business. So then after I left there, I went to, and I substitute teach for a little bit. And that substitute teaching really taught me about flexibility. It also taught me that sometimes you got to use what you got to get what you want. I knew how to teach, classroom style. I used that to get me where I needed to go. You get what I'm saying? Because substitute teaching was flexible enough that I could pick up a shift and work when I want to or when I needed to, and didn't when I didn't. So when I moved to North Carolina, as you can see, baby, I've been all around. I'm global. When I moved to North Carolina, I started, or I came here with no job solidified. I came here interviewing. So, like, for example, I interviewed for my current position before I left Texas, and then by the time I got the job, I was in North Carolina. Then now I'm an admin assistant at a international tech company, which is crazy, right? I never would have thought. If you have a ThinkPad, I work for the company that makes ThinkPad or owns the proprietary information for ThinkPad, right? So this is so crazy to me because, like I said, this is an internationally owned company, and sometimes I'm messaging like China members or Japan members, team members, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, somebody in China or Japan knows the name Alexis Gant, knows this person. They probably look me up on whatever social media engine that they have, and like, oh my gosh, and not to think about it in a conceited way, but just to really think about how globalized I am. And like I said, I'm global now. So me working these last 7 months, I think it's been almost. I started in May. So you do the math. I can't do all that right now. Me working the last 7 or so months at this major, tech company has been so special because I am learning so much about entrepreneurship. And it's crazy because, like I said, my last role, my last real role, I was exposed to Black entrepreneurship. But in this role, I'm learning about international entrepreneurship and how even at a corporate environment, even in a corporate environment, the mindset that you get with entrepreneurship is invaluable, right? Which brings me to my current job. Like, yes, I work a job, but I am my job. Maybe I'll do an episode about being my job. I don't work jobs, I am a job. Maybe one day I'll do an episode about that. But now, I really consider myself a full-time entrepreneur and creative. Even though, I work as an administrative assistant at this large company, I just see that company as one of my clients. Administrative assistant, that is a role that I have. That is not necessarily my title, right? My title, I would consider it as a multifaceted leader advocate. That's my title. And I do so through the Mommy Mogul Consulting, Triple H, which I've talked about a lot. Life with Lexis K, which we're here. Life with Lexis K podcast falls under this entity umbrella of Life with Lexis K, the brand. So just being able to create something is so special. A lot of my ideas have come from this book that I'm writing in and I'm reading my notes out of, which I call my book of life. And if you follow me on the blog, I talk about my book of life all the time because it's just, Habakkuk 2 and 2, write the vision, make it plain. Like, this is my magic. This is my grimoire, my Bible of sorts. But I want to just use the last couple of, because I know this is a long episode, y'all. I just been yapping away. I'm getting comfortable. What did I learn throughout this entire journey of jobs? So I just listed out like 10, jobs, and I'm sure I'm missing some because I've had some jobs where I just started them and quit, or, I worked 2 days or whatever. But I really learned a lot in these different arenas, right? Like I talked about when I was a virtual assistant or virtual receptionist, I learned about real estate, or as an ELS teacher, I learned that I enjoy teaching not just students, but people. I enjoy helping people become better at what they do. As a program specialist, I learned about Black entrepreneurship and that Black people are millionaires and that, you can make $1 million doing a lot of different things and that you don't have to sell a product, you can sell a service. And seeing that really one-on-one, or even as a unit secretary, I learned, just that I can manifest the perfect job for me. I don't have to settle. I don't have to, get less than I deserve. I can manifest something that will be perfectly made for me, because like I said, they had just made that position and I was looking for something exactly like the position that they made. All right. So those are just some off the dome things that I learned, but I got some more that I wrote down. Number one, every job was an initiation, not a mistake. So like I started with the beginning, sometimes I have regrets. Like, damn, I didn't stay in education long enough to become an expert. I didn't stay in, grocery long enough to become an expert, or long enough to become managerial level or executive level. And while that might look negatively against me, I know my design type. I'm supposed to accumulate all these different experiences. I'm not supposed to settle down early into anything, but especially not a career. Because I just told you my first job was at 14 years old at Winn Dixie. I could have easily worked my way up to, customer service manager, CSM, assistant store manager. But what the hell do I look like being a store manager at Winn Dixie? Yeah, no. I'm bigger than that. And that's no shade to people who are store managers at Winn Dixie. That might be their calling. I just know my calling is bigger than that. And that takes me to number two. You were never meant to pick just one thing. So it's like when I'm even talking about my calling required me to be bigger than a title. That's why I battled so heavily with education. And I'm working on a blog post, a LinkedIn post, that I'm talking about, something that I heard at a conference recently. Somebody who knew me, or they knew me through somebody else, a previous colleague, they made a comment that really triggered me. And the comment was, so I heard you went back to teaching. And it triggered me so bad because I have shame related to going back to anything because I'm always moving forward. But I had to realize that teaching was a catalyst for the Mommy Mogul Consulting. That without Miss Gant, without me teaching in Houston like I did for those years, I would not have the skills necessary to present information in a way that was clear and concise, right? I would not know the terminology economy of language, which means being able to say something using the least amount of words possible. So those things are going to help me in my number 10, my entrepreneur creative career, because I needed to know how to do that to do this. But it was also like a calling is not one. I'm meant to thrive on variety. I'm a manifesting generator. I've told y'all before, manifesting generators are meant to pivot. I'm meant to thrive on variety, change, movement. I'm meant to write new stories and have new growth. Y'all, the song I channeled when I was writing my notes for this episode, and maybe I'll start doing that too, like channeled songs, is Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield. And it's so crazy because sidebar, it's so crazy because I wrote these notes probably like a week and a half ago. I think before even I went to Charlotte, I wrote these notes, and because I went to Charlotte Monday and Tuesday. We'll talk about it later, y'all. But I recently seen that Mona Leo had invited Natasha Bedingfield to the stage to sing like a bit of Unwritten. And y'all, it brought tears to my eyes because it was confirmation to me, because I remember, and I thought about it when I watched it. I said, when I sit down to record the episode, I'm gonna make sure I include this channeled song, because that is the thing. I was never meant to just pick one thing because my story is continually being written. I'm here to write a new story. Like, that's why on my blog, I have a blog post, one of my favorites, The Evolution of Lexis Kai, where I just talk about how my name has changed over the years, how I went from even Miss Winn Dixie. Miss Winn Dixie was featured in that blog post. I went from Miss Winn Dixie. Everybody knew me as that, y'all. I could go anywhere. I could go anywhere on the west side, on the north side. Even sometimes at school, if they knew me from like work, and I was Miss Winn Dixie. That was a whole persona because I was always at work. Number one, I was fine, even though I was young. Maybe that's inappropriate, but I was just. It had become a part of my identity that I worked at Winn Dixie, and I worked there so long. And who do you know, 14 years old, having a job for 5 years? You get what I'm saying? And then the last thing I learned is that wisdom comes from what you've lived, not what you were told, right? And this is so important because so often I'm hearing this sentiment, well, I did everything y'all told us to do, right? That millennial and late Gen Z are feeling so disgruntled and so disenfranchised because they feel like they did everything they were supposed to do. But what if I told you that is incorrect? Sometimes you don't need to listen to somebody else. You need to live it for yourself. And this is a lot. This is 6 line energy, y'all. So please don't get me to lying. But this is a lot of 6 line, 3 line energy. You have to have experience gained, right? Wisdom comes from experience gained. It does not necessarily come from knowledge, because what is knowledge without application? What is knowledge without application? All right. So again, I appreciate you for making it to the end of today's episode. It was a bit longer than expected, but I got into the flow state and I couldn't help myself. Now, if you are interested in learning your design, so that's your channels, maybe your definition, motivation, definitely go on lifewithlexis.com and book an in-depth reading with me. That in-depth reading is a 1 hour FaceTime and it's $99. And if you're interested in joining a community that's based in human design, all about elevating to the next stage, quantum leaping, all that jazz, make sure you look into the first cohort of Live Life Lavish University launching in April 2026. You can use that coupon code founding10 to get $99 off, and that coupon code will only be good for the first 10 people who sign up. All right, but I love you to life. Can't wait to see you in the next 2 weeks or talk to you in the next 2 weeks, and thank you for tuning in.